Welcome to the Evermoore Wedding Vendor Show, where we chat with local wedding vendors. I'm Josh from Evermoore Films, the host of the Wedding Vendor Show. We also have a wedding vendor directory on our website where we have over 1,000 local vendors listed. And one of those vendors is Alexis Hamey from Alexis Hamey Photography. We decided to have her on the show today. Alexis is a wedding and portrait photographer based in Bakersfield, California. Welcome to the show, Alexis.
Hey guys, that's me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the show. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who Alexis Hamey is?
Awesome. Sure, Josh. Thank you. So you kind of already said it. I'm Alexis. I'm a wedding and portrait photographer based here in Bakersfield, California. However, I do, capture your love wherever you want to take me. But yeah, that's me.
Awesome. So, Alexis, I know you and I have had a lot of conversations, over the time that we've worked together. So for those who don't really know you, kind of describe, your brand, your experience, what sets you apart.
Okay. Yeah. So, my brand really is more like fun, happy, just energetic. And I think what sets me apart is the relationship that I build with my clients. So I'm huge on relationships. I'd rather spend my time with, a few clients versus like having a wedding every single weekend all year. So what I like to do is really just get to know you on a personal level. I really want your story to come through in your photos. So I think for me, it's just making you feel comfortable with me in order, for us to make that magic.
Right.
And
are you fun to work with? Are you hyper serious? What's your style?
Very playful. I can be silly and playful. I'll crack jokes with you. There's a lot of movement involved in a photo session with me. And
I can attest to that.
Yeah. A lot of movement, a little bit of everything, some standing poses, sitting poses, things like that. But really it's just like, let's go have an experience. Let's frolic around in a forest. Let's go to the beach, run around in the sand, swing each other around, just have a good time. That's really what it's about for me. Yeah,
absolutely. And I know that photography is one of those fields where on one hand, people are like, well, there's so many photographers. But on the other hand, they're all different and everyone's got a different style, a different approach. And many times it's not a case of one is better than the other. It's just that they're different and different people are looking for a different kind of experience. Some people want the photographer who's going to come in with the giant strobes and do these like really dramatic, I can't even do it, poses and, super moody in the lighting and all this stuff. And some people are like, hey, I want someone who's just going to like have fun and just make me laugh and keep it simple. Like there's different approaches and different styles. So where would you define your style and approach?
Definitely more natural. Like I said, I love to incorporate movement and just fun interactions between my couples. I really like the focus to be on you two, and I'm just there capturing it like as it happens. And of course I prompt you and I help you with your posing and I don't just leave you hanging.
Do I have to do this?
No, you don't have to. But I really do I really want to capture you, and for me, it's about having fun. And so I know if I'm having fun, I'm hoping you're having fun too. And as long as I'm the more awkward one, then hey, it doesn't even matter what, how you guys are going. And
right.
I'm pretty awkward, so I'll win every time. So you just know that you're always looking better than me, and that's the point, really.
There you go. I always prefer to be behind the camera, rather than in front of it. So I know how that feels.
It's really hard to be in front of the camera, and so that's why I like to be behind it too. but it's good. Like right now I'm in front of the camera and I'm like, looking at myself, seeing how I look and everything. And just, you say things and you're like, ew, why did I say that? Then you look back at it and you're like, you know what? It's not that bad. It's not that scary after. And it's always worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. How long have you been doing photography?
Oh gosh. So I've had a camera in my hand 15 or more years. So I actually have a little story about how I started, I guess.
Okay.
So it started in high school for me, my freshman year of high school. Gosh, that was more than 15 years ago. That's scary. Anyways, so freshman year of high school, I was introduced to a photography course. I was fortunate that my high school had a photography class, not only digital, but also film. And
nice.
So it was the best. I was like the little vampire in the dark room that never came out to see the sun. Like I lived it there and I loved it. And so I spent, my 4 years in high school, taking photography, and I actually still have a relationship with my, high school photography teacher. We go back and forth all the time. Nice. Just sharing our stories of like weddings and stuff. 'Cause he still shoots weddings as well. Okay. His retirement. So it's really cool to still have that relationship with him, and get to share my journey. But when I was a freshman in high school, I started what I called my 365 project, where I took a creative self-portrait every day for a year. Okay. I would set up my camera. I had like a Canon PowerShot is what I started with. And nice. I would set up my camera. I'd put it on a tripod. I'd go whatever I was doing for the day, whether it was like something was going on. Would find some way to take a cool, like creative self-portrait. This was like before selfies were a thing, right? And I'd include my friends on it or my family members sometimes. I'd go home, I'd edit my daily photo on on Picnic is what it was called at the time. It was like it wasn't even, I didn't even have Photoshop or anything like that yet. Right. It was like online editor. And I'd upload it to Flickr.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Flickr. Wow. Yeah.
And then I'd upload it to Facebook. And I had a gallery on my Facebook, which I still have. It's buried deep in there, but I would post a photo every day. And I would have like followers that would, comment on them every day, friends and family, classmates, whatever. And I kind of became this this girl just like known as like that camera nerd at school.
So did you just do it for a year or did you keep going?
A whole year, every day for a year, a creative self-portrait. No matter what was going on in my day, I made time every day for that. And I felt like it really just fueled this creativity in me. It was so much fun. And that was already like 15 years ago-ish.
No one wants to count back at this point and find out how far back high school was actually, but it's a while. Yeah. Well, that is cool. That is cool. I know for me, I started when I was 10. Somebody, I always liked watching movies, but someone gave our family one of those ancient VHS huge shoulder cams.
Yeah.
And, there's like a little bit of home video footage of me, being a monkey in front of the camera. And then I got my hands on the camera and immediately I fell in love. I was like, wait a second, this is way I don't want to be in front of the camera anymore. I want to be behind the camera. And so I had this, and my parents let me have it, and so I always had this camera in my hands. I was filming everything. The thing had like 4 buttons. It was like you can focus closer or farther, and you could change your exposure up and down. And so I'm like out in the backyard, like cranking the exposure so everything's overexposed, being like, oh, we're on the surface of the sun. Just being a complete idiot, but having so much fun and experimenting and learning and just, I don't know anything, but just playing with these things. And so it started when I was 10. And by the time I was 11, I was reading cinematography books, and I was just like so interested. And so that it's just been my passion my entire life. And I've never stopped. And that was a long time ago.
I can agree that like I really haven't stopped since then either. It's like you find that spark and you go with it. And so, for me, it was such a fun experience every day. Like you mentioned, like you just get out there and you do it, and then you want to keep doing it. And, for me, I think that 1 year of just practicing creative self-portraits. And I was like, well, I always have myself to, pose.
It's always the struggle, right?
Yeah. And so, and that was the most comfortable I'd ever been in front of the camera because I did it every day. And so I really taught from posing myself then, it really taught me how to pose others and think about what like angles look good, what their insecurities are and things like that. Yeah. And then apply it, to what I do now. And I, started that at such a young point in my career. Like it was just a hobby back then. Little did I know that was going to carry over to when I decided to make this into a full-time career. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So when was the transition, or well, like, so when did you start working professionally, like doing it for money? And then at what point did you decide like, I'm going to go full-time with this?
Awesome. Yeah. So in high school, I was already doing like senior portraits and things like that. So I was kind of always like just making a little bit of side cash here and there. And then through college, same thing. I would just do like family portraits, seniors, and, just kind of very off and on,
right,
as I could, because I was also balancing like my classes and things. And I actually went to school to be a teacher. And so I did my bachelor's and my master's. I got both my degrees from Cal State Bakersfield.
Okay.
I taught for about 5 years in the elementary classroom and loved it. And also I just always had this feeling like I was not doing like what I was supposed to be doing in life. And then
were you still like doing photography on the side while you were teaching?
Yes, that was always like, and I had clients from like the schools that I was working at. They would come to me for like their family photos and things.
Nice.
I loved it. And I loved that, I could build a relationship in that way with my coworkers as well at that time. But there was just always this part of me that was like, I really want to do this full time, but I'm terrified. Like I'm terrified to make the jump from the security of, having that teaching career. And so when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was like, you know what, if there's ever a time, this maternity leave is going to give me the time I think that I need to decide what path I want to take.
Yeah.
And I went on maternity leave. I never came back to the classroom. From there, I was like, you know what? I'm meant to be home with my kids, but I'm also meant to be creating art. And so made the decision to leave my, my teaching career, which was hard. It was not an easy decision to make.
Yeah.
But I would make it 10 times over again, knowing like the opportunities that I've had since making that decision. And so I went from there to jumping basically right into the wedding industry, which was also scary because I don't know anybody in the wedding industry, and I've never shot a wedding before. And it's a wedding. It's somebody's day that you can't do over.
You no do-overs.
Scared. You have to know what you're doing. And so I was lucky enough to have some mentors when I was first starting who really just took me under their wing. And now I'm a full-time wedding photographer, balancing 2 kids at home at the same time. We travel for my job and it's the best thing ever. So long answer to that one, but hey, here we are. We got to the end.
Oh man. So how long have you been shooting weddings in particular?
So I've been shooting weddings since March of 2022. So about 2 years.
Okay.
Just focusing on weddings. And it's been the best. I absolutely adore it. It's so much fun.
That's fun. I want to say that was around the time that we met.
Yep.
It was right around that time, because I was selling a lens over back when I had my studio, and you came and bought it. So yeah, that was funny. And then like the next weekend, like you were at a wedding we were doing. We're like, hey.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I basically once I made that choice to go into weddings, I was like, okay, here we go. I gotta invest. And so that was one of the things I did is I went and bought a lens from you.
Yeah.
And then saw you the next weekend. I was like, hey, nice to see you again.
Right? Oh man, that's funny. Okay. So in the time that you've been doing weddings, you've probably had some fun experiences. You've probably had some crazy stories, some things that have happened. What sticks out? What stories stick out to you?
Oh, goodness. I like to focus on the good.
Right.
So, really,
what's like the best thing that's happened to you, or the best story, or the best moment? Just what's the highlight?
Well, okay. So every wedding is incredible. They're all different, but like the love that you see. So, I'm not going to like pinpoint a certain wedding. I'm going to pinpoint, actually a session that I just did recently for a wedding client, for an upcoming wedding that I have.
Okay.
Because it's too hard to choose like one wedding, to be honest.
That's fine.
I love it. I love it. But a session. So this was kind of like a dream come true for me. One of my first big like dream come true sessions.
Nice.
So most recently, back in May, so it's now July, so May, my wedding couple for this upcoming fall asked me to shoot an engagement session for them in Yosemite National Park, which I've never been, which is crazy because it's only like 3.5 hours away.
Yeah. Okay.
I know. I don't know. I don't know why I'd never been there until then. But it was like the most amazing session ever. And so what we did is they are avid hikers. They like hang off of cliffs like every other weekend. It's just like
that kind of avid hikers.
They do for fun. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, so you want to go to Yosemite? What do you want to do in Yosemite? They're like, well, we want to go to Glacier Point. The road just opened to it yesterday. And so she texted me like that week and was like, hey, like we got to go do this. Would you be willing to go at sunrise? And I was like, yeah, I would love to. It's going to be early, but I would love to. So we drove, my husband and I stayed in Oakhurst, drove like an hour and a half into Glacier Point. We had to wake up at 3 a.m., meet the couple at 3:30, book it to Yosemite National Park in the dark.
Right.
Drive all the way through all the windy roads and everything up Glacier Point Road. We get there before sunrise, and then I get to shoot an engagement session, sunrise engagement session on the first day that Glacier Point Road opened. So we were like some of the first people this year to get to view the sunrise.
Nice.
Yosemite National Park. And it was the most beautiful, like amazing session. And of course they were like, we want to stand on the edge of that rock. And it's like hanging over the cliff. And I'm like, you know what? You do you.
Right. Let's do it.
Very careful. And I mentioned that like 100 times to them. I was like, take your time,
Don't
I found a good angle. Yeah. Don't fall off the edge of the cliff, please. But it's like what they love. And what I loved about that session too, aside from the amazing view, because it was one of the most prettiest views I've seen in my entire life. But just the fact that session was so authentically true to my couple, like they were doing exactly what they love to do in a place that's really special for them. Yeah. And I got to be there. I was so fortunate to be there to capture it. And it was a dream. It was so much fun. I was exhausted by the end of the day, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. We had so much fun. It was unreal.
That's cool. That is cool.
That's my highlight for sure of my career so far.
Yeah. When you do the hard things, like get up at 3 a.m. to make a sunrise happen in Yosemite, like those things always pay off.
Oh, absolutely. I would do that. I would love to say I would do that every day. Watch the sunrise come behind happen. I do need to sleep too at some point.
Right.
But maybe I could do that a lot more though. So if anybody wants to go to Yosemite for a sunrise session, let me know because I'm so down.
There you go. Call Alexis. Oh man, that's fun. Good. Well, now that our roller coaster went up, let's bring it down. Before we bring it back up, what is the worst thing that's happened to you? The worst story, the worst moment, the worst screw up, the worst that just happened, that makes you just be like, oh, like what is the worst story that you can think of?
Okay, I do have one. It was before I was a wedding photographer, and it was actually part of why I was hesitant for a while to jump into weddings, because like I said before, I was a portrait photographer for a long time. I've only been shooting weddings for the past, 2-ish years. I was really, really scared of jumping over to the wedding wagon and messing something up for somebody else's day. Like, your wedding day is one of the most important days of your life. And if I'm the one capturing it, those memories, like I am holding those memories for you. And, until they are delivered. So
you don't want to delete it because you didn't get dinner.
Right. So the worst thing that ever happened to me was not on the scale of a wedding day, but it was my best. So my best friend asked me, or actually I offered to shoot photos of my best friend's son's birthday party. He was turning 2 at the time.
Okay.
And so I took all these really cute photos of him, of like all their family, everything. I bet you can guess what happened to the photos. Well, I lost all the images and I was so scarred for life from that, because that's a day you can't get back. And no, it's not a wedding day, but it's a day that it can't be repeated. You're not going to get those moments back. And I had to tell my best friend, I lost those images. Like, they got my card corrupted. I didn't have them backed up. It was like, even telling this story is like, I just get this sinking feeling every time. Yeah. It's huge, immense guilt. And so that was like the worst I've ever felt. And then I vowed from that experience on to never let that happen again with anybody's images anytime. And so I really took it as a learning experience, and also just understanding just how important it is what we do as photographers and videographers, where we are capturing something as it's happening, and those moments aren't going to happen again. So when I capture any session, actually, now, not just weddings, but any session, I shoot on 2 cards that write both cards. From any of my cameras. They're all dual writing cameras. And then I triple back up. I have 3 separate hard drives and a cloud service. So that's how many backups. And I still am like paranoid. I think I'll never fully get over what happened from that day. But I do all of that the second I get home. I don't waste any time. Even after a wedding day, if I'm not getting home till like 10 o'clock at night, I'm backing up your photos in all those different places before I go to sleep. So I'm up till 1:30 at night most of the time after a wedding day. Everything's backed up. The hard drives go into a fireproof safe. And there's, you have your images backed up in so many different places that it is near impossible for those images to get lost, those memories to get lost. So I took, that worst experience that I've ever had and learned from it. And now, like, moving forward, I treat your images and your memories the same way I would treat mine if it was my wedding day or my photo session.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, see, I knew I could ask you this question because I knew that you've already turned it into a lesson learned, right? Because I know how type A you are.
Very type A. I can't help it. But
oh man,
to the benefit. Yeah. To the benefit.
I think everyone who creates images, photo, video, whatever it may be, at some point has had that story where they did something, however big, however small, and they lost all the footage, all the photos, all the whatever, due to some mistake or just some crazy circumstance, because there's that too, things out of our control, and had that moment, had that and just had that horrible feeling and had to tell somebody that we lost everything.
Yeah, just having to admit it. It's like
right.
The worst.
It's like, it's bad that it happened and you feel terrible. But then when you have to tell someone that you lost it all, anyway, I don't want to give you PTSD, but
it's already there. It's okay.
Right.
I'm still best friends. We're still best friends. Like,
see, there you go.
The sweetest, most gracious ever. Like,
there you go.
Yeah.
But see, we learn from those mistakes.
Absolutely.
And that's the key. And that's what we have to do in business. We learn from our mistakes because we're human. We're going to make mistakes. It's what do we do, and how do we learn from it? So that's awesome. We're on the same kind of backup train at Evermoore, and also at Story King, the corporate brand. We back everything up. We keep everything safe, and we've got multiple hard drives it goes on. We've got cloud storage. And putting video in cloud storage is rough because you're talking about sometimes we're generating a terabyte or 2 per week of video, depending on how many shoots we have in a given week. Some single shoots, just one day, we generate 2 terabytes. And so it's like we have to have super fast internet to get all that uploaded in a reasonable time that we can feel secure that it's backed up. So anyway, backups, and then another backup.
Yep.
Because I can't tell you how many times people will, hey, we lost. And like, okay, just funny story. So when we deliver, wedding videos to clients, we do digital delivery. Sales tax laws in California are crazy, whatever. So we do digital delivery. And so, we'll send everything. And then we tell couples, we're going to keep everything online. It's all backed up everywhere, safe for a year. And then after a year, it comes out of the cloud storage and just goes into archive, stays on the hard drives. We never actually delete anything, but, it's less protected. So you're guaranteed safe for a year. And after that, take your chances if you want to buy raw footage or you want, whatever. And I can tell you how many couples, when we get to about a year and we follow up like, hey, just want to make sure you guys, have everything you need before we, delete stuff or whatever. They're always like, oh yeah, I don't remember how to access my video, or like, oh, I never downloaded it. How do I do that? And like, we told you when we sent it to you. And it's just funny to me how people think, if something's online, it's safe.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, you sent me my wedding video. It's online. It's safe. It's just like, no, it's not. You need to make your own backups.
Yes.
Like, so I just downloaded it to my phone, right? Like, no, like put it on your computer, back it up onto a hard drive, a flash drive, like keep it safe. Like, I'm like, I plan to be here forever, but I'm not going to be, it's not how it works. I will die at some point.
With video too, because like with photo, I mean, I deliver some more photos than you're going to print, but you can print those photos and put them on your wall. And with video, it's a little bit different. You know, you don't have it. You save it to a drive, you said, or a CD or whatever. Like, people don't even use CDs anymore. It's like not really a thing. Yeah. But yeah, it's so important to just have that stuff backed up. And I'm sure, like you said, anybody who has ever been, a photographer, videographer, things like that, we've all probably learned the hard way at least once. And it's how to take that situation and learn from it.
And I'll drop a quick horror story of my own here, on this same theme. So once you create your systems, right, and you're like, okay, this is never going to happen, and you have all these, you have your systems, your checklist, your, well, I'm not going to bed until it's whatever these systems are, right? There will come a day when, despite your systems, despite all of this, you're tempted to feel comfortable, and you're tempted to say, I'm just going to take a shortcut today.
No.
There was a wedding more than a year, less than 3 years ago. I took a shortcut, and we had the footage on the cards. I dumped the footage off onto the hard drive. And we have these systems, right? You dump it on the hard drive, you copy it immediately to another hard drive. It immediately starts backing up to the cloud. Like, there's all these.
Yeah, same.
And so I dump it to the hard drive, and then I do something you're not supposed to do. I go, well, let me go ahead and just format these cards now. And, I have verified everything is copied to the hard drive. I know we're good. It's done. But minimum 2 places, right? Minimum, it needs to be in 2 places. And I go, I'm in the process of copying it to the second hard drive. I'm going to go ahead and just format these cards now. And this was a wedding where, we had one of our other shooters, who's not full-time, staff with us, but they're, one of our contractors. He shot the wedding, and it was like, he needed his cards back. And yeah, there's a lot of results of this story. We no longer do things that way. But anyway, so he needed his cards back, and I was like, okay, let me, I dumped everything off, format everything, here's your cards back, all good. And I'm dumping it to the second hard drive. And, it's done, dumping to the second hard drive, it's backing up to the cloud. And I go start looking, and I realize, in the process of copying hard drives, the files got corrupted on the second hard drive.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, no. And I go to copy it back off of the first hard drive. And the file syncing software we use syncs both directions, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it was a bad thing, because it resynced the corrupted files back on top of the not corrupted files. And so now I had 2 copies of corrupted video from this wedding, and we're talking about all of the video from this whole wedding.
Oh my gosh,
corrupted. And I just formatted the cards and gave them back to the guy who shot this wedding for us. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do now, Josh? And actually 100% of the files weren't corrupted. About half of them were.
Okay.
So we had about half the files not corrupted, just as they were.
Yeah.
And so I do the only thing you can do. I go spend $600 on file recovery software.
Yep.
And I go drive back to this guy's house. I need those cards back. Here's some of my cards to have while I've got to have these for who knows how long to do file recovery. Yep. I was able to recover all the clips, which is like unheard of in file recovery. I was using 3 or 4 different file recovery softwares for about a week, just scanning and running and scanning. Like, it was nuts. We recovered everything. We didn't lose anything. And I've never told this story. So we recovered everything. We didn't lose anything. And I learned another lesson, which is don't skip your own checklist. Don't skip your own checklist. Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
The worst part, don't format the cards until it's copied as part of the checklist.
Yeah.
I broke my own rules and paid for it. And so I had to spend a lot of money and time to fix it. And thankfully, we were able to fix it. But one of the new results we got from that is never again do we ask other people to shoot on their own cards. So anytime someone shoots I'm like, memory cards are cheap. There's no excuse for this ever happening again. Where I feel this pressure that I've got to give someone's cards back. No. And so I went and bought a ton of memory cards. And now, anytime someone shoots with us, even if they're, sometimes they're using our cameras and gear anyway, and sometimes they're using their cameras, but here's my cards. Those go in your camera. You're recording to my cards. And then I'm keeping my cards forever. And until I know this is backed up in 3 places, those cards don't get formatted. So anyway, there's always things to learn, even when you've been doing it for a long time, even when you have systems, even, it's just craziness. But thankfully, it all turned out fine, and it was all good. And the couple never knew that we almost lost their entire wedding because we didn't lose it in the end, right? Because that's the other part about being in business and having a reputation. Like, we've got a 5-star reputation to uphold. If we screw up, we have to do everything available possible to fix it. And I was like, even though I spent $600 on recovery software, if I can't get it with this software, I'm sending it to one of these services that charges you $1,000, $2,000 to recover files, because it's like, no, this couple entrusted us with their wedding day.
Yep.
Like, there is no point where we stop trying to do everything possible, everything available to make sure we deliver for them, no matter how much it costs me. And thankfully, it didn't go that far, and the other tools were able to do it. But it's like, you can't just try one file recovery tool. You need 2 or 3 or 4, because they're all different, and they're all going to, and it was a mess trying to put all that back together. Because
I can't imagine the stress. I
don't know if you've ever done file recovery, but it's messy. It's not clean. And here's your file named blah, 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 blah. Like, good luck. So we have to sit there manually and be like, okay, what clip is this? And your metadata's gone, everything's gone. And it's just some file with a weird hash name. And you got to sit there and be like, is this the same clip as this one? Or is that just a fragment of this one? And you got to sit there and you got to sort it out. And we did. But anyway, there's always stories. There's always fun stories and horror stories in business.
Well, and I think that if I would have known file recovery services were even a thing back when, I lost those photos of my best friend's son's birthday, I would have gone that route, and I probably, would have been able to save something from it. But I just didn't even have the knowledge then as a hobbyist that those tools are even available. And now as a wedding professional and having that experience in the industry, the experience shooting, the education that I've given, that I've invested in to do what I do now, to do it well, to do it right, to do it legally, to do it professionally. It's always in hindsight that you're like, oh, well, I could have done this differently.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like you said, even though you have years of experience in it, things can still happen. And the fact that, you were willing to go to the ends of the earth to make sure that your couple had those memories, that's so important. And that just shows how much passion you have for what you do. And also the fact that what we do is a service. And at the end of the day, yes, we run a business, but at the end of the day, we are serving our clients to the best of our ability. And even if that means if something goes wrong and we lose out, the most important thing is our client and our couple. So, I would have, had I been in your situation, I can't say I would have done anything differently. If I had to spend more money than I made on that wedding to recover it, that's what would have happened. So good for you. And I'm glad you found a solution to that and that they will never know.
right? And they will never know who they are.
Nope.
And then all these couples are going to, was it me?
Right?
There's nothing like, having to be like, I've never told this story, but I screwed up big.
Yeah.
And then you've got this crazy story to tell. And it's funny, it's easier to do that after you've become, successful, after you have a good reputation, because, when you're starting out, you say a story like that and people are like, do they know what they're doing? But, it doesn't matter who you are. We're all human.
Yeah.
The guys, the girls, whoever's doing our craft at the highest level, they screw up sometimes. It's just how it is. So, but it's what you do. It's how you recover, and it's how fast you recover, right? Mm-hmm. I was shooting a wedding, and I was with another photographer, and they had the little side holster things, and we were at a church with hard floors,
No.
and someone dropped a camera.
Yeah.
One of their cameras, not mine. Lens first. They had a UV filter on. Saved the lens. The UV filter shattered. But they couldn't unscrew the UV filter because the threads were messed up. And so it was like when we get home, we can get here with pliers and fix this, but for now, we're down a lens for the day.
Yeah.
So for the day, we're down a lens. And so, they had enough stuff. They were fine because redundancy is important. You don't want to show up with one lens. Be like, I'm here. Because what happens, right? And we got to have backups. And they didn't. And it was fine. But, it's like everyone take a turn trying to unscrew this filter. Like, yeah, that's not coming off. But anyway, things happen. Okay. So I know we're running a little long, but we're having a good time.
Shocker. I knew we would.
Right. Okay. So let's shift gears to what we like to talk about at the end of the show, which is advice for couples who are looking for a photographer, and advice for budgeting for a photographer, right? Because photography is one of those things that it just runs the gamut. Really every service, you can't even pick a service and say this one runs the gamut. Like they all do. Because in every category, you've got, a bartender who's like, I've never tried it, but can I try and help you for free? Like all the way to, the high-end experienced people. So there's a gamut for every industry. So you can't even pretend like someone's special. But there is a gamut. Just like everyone else, you're special. So let's talk about photography and tips for couples, advice as they're looking for a photographer. What advice would you give them? And also, and we'll do multiple questions. We'll just start with that, right? I'm going to give you a paragraph-sized question to bite off. But what advice would you have for couples looking for a photographer, Alexis?
Okay, well, two things. The first one, I kind of already went over that with my horror story. Really important that when you are, looking for a wedding photographer, that you are looking for somebody who is experienced in what they're doing. And they
know what a backup is.
Yeah. The systems that they have in place are going to protect your images, your memories, because it is so easy to lose them if you're not prepared. So that's one piece of advice I would ask, as a wedding couple, hey, how do you back up do you back up your images? How do you?
Unfortunately, you have to ask it that way. Do you back up your images?
That's a really technical question that a lot of, couples may not think to ask. So I would say,
and that's equally important for videographers. And yes. I'm surprised how few couples, like once a year, a couple will ask about that. And I'm just like, why aren't more people this is a big deal.
Most inquiries that I get when we sit on a consultation call, they're not asking me questions like that. And I don't expect them to, but I share that anyways, because I tell them, like, no matter who you decide to work with, they should be at the very minimum doing X, Y, and Z for you.
Right.
And so that's one. But another one is also make sure you vibe well with your wedding photographer, because you are
so
together all day on your wedding day. And then if you choose
and
to
they're
do
literally in your face all day.
You're
like
right
in the best way. So yeah, like you have to like them.
You need to make sure that you can picture that person with you and your, your brand new husband or wife for pretty much the entirety of the wedding day, because yes, we are there the whole time.
I have done weddings where the photographer and the couple are not having a good time. And the couple's looking at me like, can you save me? Like,
no.
I hate to say it's happened. I don't want to say that, but it's happened. I'm stopping the story right there. But it's happened. And yeah, it's really important that you like your photographer.
Well, and there is a photographer for everybody.
Yes.
So I think it's important that, whoever you decide to work with, that you feel comfortable with them, that they can make you feel comfortable in being yourself. And so I also think it's important that if it is, within your means, to book an engagement session with your photographer, because that's your practice run. That's where you get all the stiffness out, and you just go, you have fun, you get to know each other. You get to know what it's like to be in front of that photographer's camera, because you may have done photo sessions in the past, family photos, or maybe you've even done couples photos prior with a different photographer. But every photographer is different in how they work and the energy that they bring. And just because maybe you were comfortable in front of one person's camera or your friend's camera, maybe your friend is like a hobbyist and they've taken photos of you before. It's different for everybody. So you want to make sure that if you can, book an engagement session, because that's your test run. It's so much fun too, and it's more relaxed environment. There's no pressure, and then that way, by the time we get to the wedding day, you already have an expectation of what it's going to be like, and I've already walked through some of those poses and prompts with you, so that you feel even more comfortable and just ready to jump right into it on your wedding day.
I will say, as a videographer, I can always see the difference when a couple's done engagement photos with a photographer, and then they're doing it at the wedding, and the photographer's like, hey, remember your engagement photos where we did this? And that, like, the couple's, oh yeah. And it's easier to pose, on the photo end. Like, video's always its own thing, but it's easier for the photographer to pose a couple when they've done a session with them before. So yeah, I can totally agree with that.
Sure. And I think it just makes the wedding day experience that much better, because that level of comfort is already there. It's been established with the relationship that you've built with your photographer.
For sure. Those are great tips, Alexis. So then the next question would be, as couples are looking to budget for a photographer, and if they go to the Knot or Wedding Wire and see like, oh, the national average is $2,500 or whatever the number is now, right? It's always low because it's a national average.
Sure.
Like the national average for videography, I think is like $1,500. It's like no, like like double, triple, quadruple that. Yeah, now we're talking. So as couples are looking for photography, what would you recommend for them from a budget perspective?
I would say that you will never regret investing in a photographer who has the experience, who has the adequate professional equipment,
right?
Who is giving you, the best that they've got. They are going to cost more, but
you get what you pay for.
You do. You get what you pay for. And I truly believe that it is 100% worth it, because even when I got married, my husband looked at me like, woman, you are crazy. We're about to spend this much money on photographers. And I looked back at him and I said, we will never regret it. having those moments preserved for us with somebody who really knows what they're doing, has the experience, is professional, and makes us feel comfortable.
Right.
So from like a budget perspective, I would say spend your money where it matters most to you. And if photos matter most to you, spend more on that and find ways in your budget to, you know, to bring that cost down in other areas. Because photography is something that is going to last you literally forever.
Yeah.
And you can't say that about every other part of your wedding, as important as they all are together.
Right.
This is the one that you're going to show your grandkids. You're going to be like, open up that wedding album and show your grandkids someday, like, hey, look, this is me and grandpa, and we got married on, you know, this day, and these are the memories that we have. Look at how young your mom is in this, you know, in
right.
this, or maybe your mom wasn't even born yet, probably,
right.
or
right.
whatever it is, you know. It's something that carries on forever. So I think it is one of the most important things to budget for. Maybe I'm saying that as a photographer, but I really am saying that from a personal experience as well.
That's great. And then what sort of price range, to put a number on it, would you recommend couples kind of prepare for?
Well, I would say at minimum $3,000 if you want somebody who's like at minimum providing you with a professional service. I feel like anything beneath that price point are more of like, maybe they're just starting, or maybe they're still building their business or their clientele. You really want to be careful. If just because you see like a budget friendly photographer, that's not always necessarily the safest option. If you are in a price point where, you know, you can't afford you know, the most professional experience, then you just have to be prepared for, you know, what could happen, because like Josh mentioned before, like, you do get what you pay for.
Yeah, for sure. And so, Alexis, at this point, if couples are still listening and they're like, okay, I'm liking Alexis, she's got good energy, she sounds fun, what should couples expect? What kind of price range to work with you?
Awesome. Yes. And yes, if you are still listening, you are a real one, because I am long-winded. So my pricing starts at $3,500. And then just depending on what you want, it goes up from there. But all of my quotes are customized depending on, after you fill out my inquiry form on my website and you give me information about your day, about what it is that you want out of your day, or your wedding experience, your engagement, all of those things do take into account. But just know that starting prices for weddings are $3,500.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show, Alexis, and kind of sharing a little bit more about yourself and your story, for the vendors who are listening, for the couples who are listening, whether they're your past couples or upcoming couples, or just, you know, whoever is out there listening. We enjoy all of our listeners. So last question, major question, is what other vendor would you like to see on the show?
Oh, I've been waiting for this question. Yes. So it was really hard to narrow down because I have some really wonderful friends. But I do want to give a shout out to Tracy with Riverfront Manor. I would love to see her on the show. I would love to hear her talk about Riverfront Manor and all that venue has to offer. And I think you guys would just get a kick out of listening to her, because she has such a big personality and she's so much fun. So Tracy, if you're watching this, it's your turn.
There you go. Awesome. Okay. Alexis, if you want to drop some contact info in case people want to get in touch with you, that would be awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. So you can contact me through my website. It is alexishameyphotography.com. Or you can DM me on Instagram, and that's just Alexis Hamey Photography.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you for being on the show, Alexis. We appreciate it.
Yay. Thank you. That was so much fun. I loved it.
Super fun. Super fun. Well, thank you for listening to the Evermoore Wedding Vendors show. If you like the show, subscribe, like, comment, leave us a review, all that good stuff. Until the next episode, enjoy and have fun with your wedding journeys as a vendor, as a bride, as whatever you are, or just a random listener. Have a good time, and thanks for being on the show. Thanks for listening to the show, and we'll see you on the next one.